All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining the ACA Small Business Bootcamp and Resource Collective for this Thursday, June 17th. We're excited to have you here with us today. I'm Robert Theobald, the Small Business Ombudsman and Vice President of Small Business Services at the Arizona Commerce Authority. As we start these boot camps, we like to share and recognize all of our community partners. We could not do these boot camp sessions without them, their time, their expertise. They've been great partners and they continue to be great partners. Those that are new to the Small Business Bootcamp, the Bootcamp is designed to help support small businesses return from the COVID crisis stronger than ever. It is a statewide initiative supported by our community partners, and it is a resource collective and content library as well. On the website, azcommerce.com/small-business-boot-camp, is the website you went to register for today's session. And you can find the upcoming sessions on that page as well, and you can register for those upcoming sessions. Additionally, you'll find the Resource Collective link on that page. And the Resource Collective is additional tools and guides put together by our community partners to help support small businesses. There's a lot of information for just about every industry. You can find that there at the link on the website. Additionally, as I mentioned, we have our content library. So we've been doing the boot camps for over a year. We're on our 58th week, I believe. And we have recorded nearly all of those webinar sessions. And so we have a content library of over 140 presentations by experts in their fields. And you can go back and review all of these recordings with the corresponding slide decks and other materials that the presenter shared to help review those materials, gain that knowledge at any time. Again, there's no cost to do that, and that is available on our website. It's under the archive session on the bottom of the bootcamp page. You can see on the screen there, real small here, it says archived, and it lists it by week, and you can go through the different weeks and see the different presentations that were done and watch that material and get that learning from it. Additionally, we have some other websites that help support knowledge related to COVID-19. The state put together their COVID information and resource page, arizonatogether.org. And then the Arizona Commerce Authority put together azcommerce.com/COVID-19. And this page is our COVID business resources page. And on there, you can find business guidance. You can find links to the financial resources that are available during this time, and many other great items of information. Additionally, the ACA has a number of programs that help support small businesses. We have our Small Business Services, our Workforce Division, and our Arizona MEP, or Manufacturing Extension Partnership. These are all great programs, and they're available to help support business owners across the state. Additionally, for those looking to start a new business, or expand your business into different product lines, we have our small business checklist. And it's designed to help entrepreneurs start, operate, and grow their business. And it's got information for commonly requested licensing, registration, compliance needs for the local, state, and federal level. So with that, we want to transition into some updates, some small business updates. The SBA has opened up the EIDL Target Advance to all eligible businesses. So we will post in the chat links to this program, and you can go on and see if you're an eligible business. And if you are, I would get your application in as fast as possible. The Targeted Advance is a grant and is not a loan. So there's an opportunity to get a little bit of funds to help support your business. Additionally, OSHA recently updated their COVID-19 guidance. So we will post a link to their website so you can review that if it corresponds to your business. And then two other great links are the IRS Small Business and Self-Employment Tax Center and the SBA Arizona District Office. And we'll post those links in the chat as well. So with that, let's look at some of our upcoming sessions over the next few weeks. So on Tuesday, we have Understanding TPT, or sales tax, and online sales tax. So if you have a business that does online sales of any type, you'll definitely want to attend this session. There's changes in Arizona's law and other states' laws that impact you as you're doing sales. So this is a very, very important session. And then on Thursday, we got a great session on how to be a great boss. The following Tuesday, consciously addressing unconscious bias. And then on the following Thursday, demystifying research and development, R&D tax credits. This is real important as well, because you may think that your business, oh, R&D, I don't get R&D tax credits. As we were preparing for this session, I was talking to the presenter. A lot of businesses can qualify for this tax credits, and you may not realize that you qualify for it. So this is a way to get some additional funds back on your taxes. So I would definitely mark your calendar to attend it as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and turn the time over to our speaker today. We have Karen Russo, who's an author and entrepreneurial coach, and the award-winning author of Money Keys and the creator of Lead Your Money Coaching. So experience. We've had Karen on with us before. She's a great presenter. We're excited to have her back. So with that, Karen, I'll stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Robert. And today's topic is how to recover from financial loss. And this is all about understanding the dynamics of a really important principle, which is the principle of financial forgiveness. It's kind of a surprising idea that that is the key to recovering from financial loss. But when you have a deeper understanding and application of that idea, this is all about helping you to be a more effective leader, more innovative, and to achieve the financial results you absolutely need as we all recover and come back stronger. So this is about revenues and profitability and growth. And I do want to point out, I'm so appreciative that the Small Business Bootcamp is comprehensive. Like sometimes there are informational sessions, some are strategic, some are operational, some are about really leadership growth. And that's what today is. So today's session is really about you as a leader. And our formal title here is How to Recover from Financial Loss, the Power of Financial Forgiveness. And we'll be covering a variety of topics, and I'll give you a little bit of sense of the overview here. I want to talk about why financial forgiveness is so important. And then what are the costs and the benefits of a leader engaging in this thing called financial forgiveness? So if I'm ever going to ask you to do something like reflect on yourself and how your mindset might have affected what's happening, believe me, I want you to know there's a benefit for you doing it. And then I'll describe a process for financial forgiveness and let you understand the step-by-step elements of that. I'm going to share two interviews. The first is with Barbara Bew. She is the field service director for a Southwest nonprofit. And the reason I'm sharing the interview with Barbara is she brings some really sobering statistics about the frequency and the effect of employee theft. And that's something that I'm a very positive-minded business owner, and yet I found it really important to understand the dynamics that happen in workplaces around theft and how business owners can recover and how to develop both compassion and prevention strategies for you as the business owner. So you see, we're going to get a little real here. And the interview with Barbara, I think, will be helpful for you. And then I'm going to describe a leadership principle, cause and effect, which is really the idea that our expectations and preconceived notions tend to affect the experience we have of financial loss and recovery. And I'm going to give you an opportunity to try it on. And then I'll share an interview with Mark Warlick. He's a business owner. He owns a real estate investing company, and he provides us some real wisdom about the power of a leader looking at his or her own mindset in terms of coming back from a financial loss. And then I'm going to complete with the most important element of financial forgiveness, which is forgiving ourselves, setting ourselves free. So when we say financial loss, what do we mean by that? We're going to give you an opportunity to let us know what's the financial loss that's affecting you right now. So we've put that into the chat. So we're going to give you an opportunity to reflect on, for example, do you have a client, a big client that's left, or have your revenues dropped? Have you lost a member of your team? Has there been employee theft or a vendor challenge, or have you lost either income or economic relationship with lease or equipment? Has someone in your family or someone else lost a job? Have you had a family financial loss or an investment loss? So thanks. Jason says a revenue dip. Are there others? Kathleen says revenues dropped. Distributors delayed orders, and that affects cash flow. Thank you. We'll wait just another moment. What's been a financial loss, especially one that is affecting you, either that's happening now, or sometimes what happens is a loss from the past. It's bothering us now. Okay, Roseanne says another leader was negligent. Melinda, we hear you. Lost every client during pandemic, a PR consultant. Now the small business clients can't afford to invest in service and haven't bounced back enough. So not only did you have a past loss, you had that opportunity cost loss of potential clients now. All right, thank you for that. Philip, revenue drop, supply chain. Kathleen, a personal investment loss. So I want to thank everybody for sharing these in the chat. And the reason I'm asking you to think about what's the loss that's affecting me is that sometimes it's surprising to us, but it's not just the loss, it's the fact that it's affecting us that we need to deal with as leaders. And so when we have a loss and it is bothering us, I'm calling that unforgiveness. And this might be a little bit of a challenging word, but all the things that you all have talked about, if there's any part of the losses, the challenges that have happened that is still in our own minds as upset or overwhelm or concern, even anger or resentment, that energy I'm calling unforgiveness, not because we aren't smart, hardworking, principled people, but because we're holding on to something that frankly is a burden to the leader. So this holding on to the upset energy, it burdens us. When I started my business 15 years ago with the Money Keys, I invested at the time what I considered a lot of money in a product development program. And at the time, the folks who sold the product development program, they were really good at selling. And frankly, it was missing a business modeling revenue generation piece that really would have been valuable. Now, the program was missing that, but I bought it. And I didn't quite see that it was missing that. And what ended up happening is I had the burden of feeling like I'm paying off this big investment in this product development. And I had some resentment and frustration that this group had not given me what I needed. So then I went out into the market and I was selling mad. And frankly, when you're selling a holistic approach to money and you want to be a motivational coach, people don't sit around saying, boy, I really want to hire that coach. She's really angry. Like it was not a very attractive, effective marketing energy. I was burdened. And I just invite you, with the challenges you've had, it's not blaming yourself, but it's getting real. Is there any way that there's upset or overwhelm or distraction about the thing that happened that is draining your energy and frankly wasting your time? I was not as effective in my selling and marketing when I was still grumbly and mad about this investment that I've made. So the opportunity cost is innovation, growth, alliances. You're not at your best when you have that burden upon you as a leader. When we have an unforgiveness, a burden like that over a loss, it's almost always because we are holding some form of judgment. And judgment is a perception about what happened. It's a meaning we make about what happened. You know, I had to face that I was resenting this other group. And when I really faced it and went through the forgiveness process that I'm going to share with you, the shift for me was, wow, I made a big investment in a lesson for me as a business owner. I had to shift my energy and really go into, what am I learning? How am I growing? How am I going to overcome this? And a little bit about how am I not going to do this again? And so that's the benefit of forgiving. When you and I forgive, we are more free. So what happens when you go through a forgiveness process, the release of that judgment, you have more business resilience. You're able to solve the problems that are in front of you and address the issues that are there. So, you know, whether it is having to, you know, Melinda has to come up with a way to be able to generate value propositions for small business clients in a way that is creative, or, B. Downey says, I'm going to have to reposition the business in order to open again. If you've got challenges with changing the relationships with distributors or vendors, you need to have a sense of innovation and creativity to be able to do that. And when you forgive, that's one of the benefits. You'll also see that you will be a better leader for your team, whether you have a team that is you and a family member and an independent contractor, or whether you have a large group of employees. When they see you as a leader, more free and more innovative, they're sustained. When you are more clear about what's going to happen next, where things are going to go, when you're more authentic about, I had this emotional reaction and I'm releasing it and changing it, you're more empowered. And all of that makes a big difference. I'll tell you that in the last 6 months, when we came out of pandemic, I knew that I was going to revamp my website. And because I'd gone through that super painful thing 15 years ago, I knew that I had to be clear about the business strategy behind the marketing messaging and the technology that I was going to ask for help with. And I found someone who was able to work with me as a vendor. And this guy became a real partner to me. He understood what I wanted because I was clear, and I was able to ask for the kind of help and support that I really needed. I was a better buyer of services because I'd gone through what I've gone through before. So that's a little bit about the cost of not forgiving and the benefits of forgiving. And I'm just going to look right into the camera and say this. I also want to let you know, forgiveness is not about saying it was okay. Forgiveness is not about agreeing that you should be a victim or a doormat. Forgiveness is not about letting someone or someone else, something or someone off the hook. Forgiveness is the choice to shift your mindset and energy about what happened as a leader and to use your creativity for a good solution for what's next. And I think that's always important. Learning from the feels. If you have the feels and the emotions, let's learn from them. I appreciate that. So let's look at the process for forgiveness. The process is assess what happened. So just like you would do an inventory of your goods and, your goods in stock, assessing what happened is getting accurate, doing a complete investigation and assessment of what did occur. You want the data, you want the numbers, you want the frequency. So sometimes it might be painful, but to go back and look, what was the percentage of revenue lost over the months? And some of you have done that as you've applied for the EIDL or PPP. Being accurate about what has been lost or what happened is really important, because what it does is it reduces the stress of not having the accurate numbers. You have to face it if you're accurate. And then the feels. As a leader, notice the emotion that you have. See if there are thoughts in your minds that are judging yourself or others, and see if what, if any, contribution did you make to what happened. So for example, I did not do my due diligence with that first big investment. I didn't do my due diligence, and part of me wanted a magic marketing bullet. Maybe it's just me, but have we ever invested in something thinking, oh, this will do for me what I'm not willing to do for myself in my business? That was my contribution. Not self-blame, but seeing what my contribution is. This is also the point where it's really nice to have a mastermind group, a coach, a loving spouse or partner who can help. Sometimes you really need a chance as the leader to get it out, because then you'll free up your energy for making your decisions going forward. And that's where you can access your human resources, your financial advisors, to get clear about what decisions you need to make, what options are available. And that's where connecting with all of the resources available from the Arizona Commerce Authority. There are so many resources out there. We're better at accessing resources when we feel creative and open and calm. And then get clear about what your goals are. So particularly if you're coming back from revenue loss, what's the next 30, 60, 90-day financial goals? When you're clear about them, then you can engage your team and engage yourself in the goals. And also, when it's a financial loss, it's important to prevent and improve. So if there was a contract that had you more bound than you thought it was, what do you do next time for contract review? If it's a system, a financial system or a communication system that didn't serve you well, how would you improve it? And when it comes to working with people, what are the things that you can do to assure that you're respecting the people that work for you and not putting yourself or them in a position for there to be any kind of financial theft, loss, problem, or risk? So that's a pretty comprehensive process. I want you to see in the next couple of, in the 2 interviews that I've done, how you can see this process in action. And the first interview will be with Barbara Bew. So you're going to see Barbara at the very beginning. You may want to turn your volume up a little bit as the video starts in a moment. She talks about her role as the field services manager for a large not-for-profit organization. And she's responsible for supporting the folks in the field. And some of what she needs to do is help people put financial controls into place. And often it's well-meaning people who do not realize the level of potential financial loss, particularly from something you can see in the video. I get surprised by it. Employee theft and how to think about and deal with it. You'll also hear Barbara talk about the human motivations that would lead people to theft, to steal, how to be compassionate, but not to be a doormat as a leader. And at the end, she gives some tips for putting employee support and financial controls into place. As you hear from Barbara, I'm going to say while we watch the video, it's about 9 minutes long, is what do you hear that is helpful to you? So it's fine during the video for you to put in the chat, what do you hear that's helpful? So here we go with Barbara Pugh.
Because then I manage ethics for a large nonprofit spiritual organization and around the world, which kind of leans me into this area of financial stuff, because it is kind of shocking how many nonprofits and businesses are affected by employee theft every year. So yeah, it's actually really interesting. So when you just kind of Google the numbers, 95% of employees surveyed have said that they have taken something from their employer. Now, that could be a pencil because they're on a survey and they're just answering, but it gets a lot larger than that. The estimate in the United States is that nonprofits lose 5% of their annual revenue to theft overall. Like in this overall picture, 5% of what we give to nonprofits ends up being stolen by someone.
That is just, I mean, that number seems so big to me.
It is. If you think about like the budget of United Way and then you calculate out 5% of that, that's just like a drop in the bucket of the overall amount that's stolen. And I think a lot of it is opportunity. You know, mostly people don't go into jobs. Okay, I'm going to get on my box here.
Yeah.
You want me to just roll with my box?
Please.
Okay. People don't go into a job wanting to steal. They don't intentionally start that way. Most of the time, I don't think. Occasionally someone does. Churches are very impacted by this stuff, by the way. So, but we hire people that we come to trust and know, and then we stop double checking and we get comfortable, or somebody's been an employee for a long time and they get comfortable, and then something happens in their life and they experience a crisis of some kind, and they begin to just take a little. Most of these things happen else. If you've ever watched Breaking Bad, you'll watch how this happens. I love that show for this. It's $10, $10 a day out of the till. It's $20 a day out of the till. And it is the shift and it's the edges shift. And then they find out, and then people find out it's not noticeable. And then it goes a little more. So I mean, it's a very, we're humans, we're very interesting creatures.
Well, and you know, when I heard you speak about this before, I was struck by it's the combination of opportunity, and there aren't controls in place, the comfort and familiarity, the psychic thing that happens with an individual who maybe goes through a challenge like pandemic, job loss of a spouse, health bills, other kind of economic things. Maybe their hours are cut back. Something happens and that employee feels a need or a desire or a desperation, and then the opportunity is there. And those things together can create this quiet or loud, slow or fast escalation of theft.
Right. So, you know, and I think nonprofits generally aren't paying people millions of dollars a year, right? And this is true in a lot of small businesses. And you know, if your employees are not making a wage that they can live on, then when something happens and they see the difference, but you know, so I mean, I'm always in this place of like, people are going to do what they have to do to feed their kids.
Yeah.
And if it means that they're bending some edges to feed their kids, they're probably going to do it because no one wants to see their child hungry. And you know, we're kind of in this place in the United States where there are people working for less than they can pay rent, right? I mean, our housing costs are kind of through the roof. So I think if you're paying an employee less than, say, $30,000 a year in most parts of the country, they might be getting by, but an emergency, a trip to the emergency room, someone getting laid off, any kind of thing is going to throw them into a spin and desperation. And I think a lot of us who have not been in that, or have not been in that kind of place for a long time, we forget what that desperation can feel like.
Yes.
And they're going to feed their kids, you know. Now there are people who just steal because it's fun, or because they get into the excitement factor. But if I were a small business owner, I would want to have a fund that is an emergency employee fund. Like, I think that people don't steal nearly as much when someone is reaching out and saying, how can I help? I can't help a lot, but here's $100.
Yeah.
And $100 can be a make or break situation for people sometimes.
I remember my stepson has owned restaurants, and one of the things that he always has done is say, we make a family meal, so we feed the shift.
Yeah.
So like just an example of like, we make food so that everybody in the back can eat, so that we're not having someone try to steal 4 ounces of a, filet
Right.
later.
And the shame and the hiding and that brings on, plus the escalation. Once somebody figures out that they can steal and get away with it, they'll steal a little more. It's like it's just human nature. And then for some people there becomes an adrenaline rush in it, and look what I'm getting away with. But I think if you're in that situation where you're desperate or you're really hurting, and you see that the people above you are doing really well, then we also justify, in our minds, we start to justify this stuff in a way that's not healthy. And then it takes off, and it just
Now,
takes off. And it
a
creates a
lot,
hard environment.
absolutely. Well, it's an environment where there's not integrity, there's not clarity, there's not honesty.
And there's not trust.
Yeah.
And I don't want to create that here. Like, I don't want to say, well, if you're in a business where your employees are not making your employees are sort of stretched because that's the nature of things right now, then don't walk in tomorrow and be distrustful of everybody. If you're not the kind of executive who is good at oh my gosh, I heard that something happened in your life, how can we help? Then have somebody on your team who's good at that.
And we're also really compassionate here about the small business owner who is,
absolutely,
struggling him or herself to be able to lead the business and fund the business. So
and
we're not saying,
right? Yeah,
I mean,
no.
and really, the message here is that this can happen. And so give us a couple of tips about prevention strategies that are both smart HR strategies, but also smart risk management strategies.
Well, and if you're in cash businesses, there's just making sure that one person's not handling the cash all the time. One person is not the person who receives the cash, counts the cash, reconciles the cash. I mean, that's just basic business strategy. And we get away from it because we get comfortable with people and we go, and it does not serve people to leave that door open. Like, it's not a kindness to leave that door open. We start to think, well, I really trust this person. I'm just going to let this go because I can trust this person. That's not really fair to them either in its own weird way. It doesn't mean being distrustful. It's trust, but verify.
Yes.
Have verification systems for these things. Don't have drawers of money that people can dip into. And in a nonprofit land, especially where you're dealing with other people's money, it's really important. And that's where having an annual audit, as much as you don't want to have an annual audit, having just good practicing accounting systems where one person writes the checks, somebody else signs the checks, somebody else reconciles the bank account, and it seems extreme, but it's just safer.
It is. And I was also really impacted when you talked about how simple things within QuickBooks and categories and a vendor bill comes in, and then what is it categorized as, and just having controls. Even in a small business, you need multiple levels of control. And I really like this respectful thing you said. Just because you have a longtime employee or even a family member or someone who you really get along with well, giving them more responsibility than is fair, than is safe, really isn't a benefit to them. It's not an efficiency. So you as the business owner, you and me as the business owner, we need sometimes to step up and invest in controls that keep our business safe, but also really do respect our employees. All right. So thank you for that, for listening to Barbara, and thank you for the comments in the chat. It seems to me that people really heard all of the messages around the balance of caring about your employees, but also being aware of putting controls into place. So thank you for that. And let's see if there's any other comments. Yeah, having the emergency employee fund's a good deal. Some of you had some good insights about desperation and to understand the desperation both of clients and employees. All of this compassion is really important. And then that's a big part of this leadership principle about cause and effect. So, you know, you heard, it's interesting because you heard Barbara say, like, don't go in tomorrow saying, I don't trust anybody, but you do want to have an awareness of how your own mindset about loss, what did happen, and about recovery, what's going to happen. Your mindset is the cause of the effect, which is your experience. So this principle, you can try it on. It may or may not resonate with you, but you've probably heard the thing, you reap what you sow, or what goes around comes around, or karma is a witch. You know, the idea that what you put into action, the idea of the light bulb becomes the light bulb. The idea of the thing becomes the thing. So you are the one who can create the experience of what's going to happen going forward in many ways through your leadership. So my experience with the recent website strategy is I decided I am going to be well served by a vendor who will be my partner in this. And that was my experience. So right now, for the financial loss that you're recovering from, what is the intent that you have that you want to empower? And that will be a little bit of the question as we go into this next conversation. So you'll see in my next interview with Mark Warlick from National Real Estate Recyclers, I'm going to ask you to, as we listen to Mark, type into the chat what you hear that's helpful. You can see that in the first 2 minutes, Mark pushes back on one of the assumptions and mindsets that I have about financial loss, which is great. And you'll also hear him use some languaging that might sound spiritual or metaphysical to you. If that resonates with you, wonderful. If it's not your thing, just let it pass and kind of listen for the principle that's behind it. Because he's talking a lot about not seeing himself as a victim when it comes to financial challenges, particularly with vendors and peers and collaborators. He also offers some tips about working with vendors that I think you'll find helpful. So as we hear from Mark, you can post into the chat what you find helpful. So I'm here today with my longtime friend, Mark Warlick, and it's an exciting conversation, this financial forgiveness conversation. So Mark, thank you for joining in, and tell us a little bit about your business and your background.
Background. Okay. So I spent, I don't know, 20, 25 years or so in corporate America, primarily in technology, marketing, some sales, some engineering, that kind of thing. And even throughout that, I always had real estate. So my focus right now is real estate investing. I buy and hold properties. I sometimes flip properties. I wholesale properties. I buy mortgage notes. So I'm sort of all over the place with that. So,
Yeah.
you know, I was thinking my first property was I think it's nearly 40 years ago.
Wow.
But I'm only 45, so there.
There you go. Started young, as many of us did.
I started young. It was right out of college, my first house.
So I know you're going to really be able to share things that many of our business owners are going to relate to, because the work that you're in your business, there are times where especially the vendor and peer relationships where there are mistakes or betrayals or challenges, and how we navigate them really makes a difference in our business success, but also in our leadership effectiveness. So tell us a little bit about your experiences.
Okay, so I do have to say at the beginning that I do look at things from a spiritual perspective.
Mhm.
So I want to say that first off. So I know that you're one of the words that you use in your title is betrayal, and I never think about betrayal. I think in terms of initiations. I think in terms of uh, lessons. So to me, a betrayal implies a being some kind of victim, and I just that's not part of my lexicon, if you will. So, and I always look, people would say Judas betrayed Jesus, but the way I look at it is that without Judas, there would be no resurrection. And so it was really, to me, it was really more of an initiation than it was a betrayal, an initiation to get to a higher level.
Mhm.
So that's how I tend to look at things. So I'll probably say some things that'll be a little bit different. So it's going to sort of come through, it will come through that lens for you. So when it comes to well, we'll use the word betrayal or losses or experiences where even recently I had a contractor actually take off some money of mine and never did the work.
Wow.
So what I realized, first of all, I start with, you reap what you sow. So I first scour my own mindset and my activity, my personal experience to see where I might be stealing from other people. That's the first thing I do. Or where I might not tell the full truth or I withhold. So I start looking for in my own mind, in my own experiences, for those kinds of things that I do, because that's what's coming back to me. So that's the first thing I do. And then of course, once I can start seeing that, then I can say, okay, well, we're not going to do that anymore. Withholding or whatever that can look like. But what I also found was that I'm in a marketplace where people scam and do that kind of thing all the time.
Yeah.
So what I also realized was that I was actually, in a way, expecting that. I was holding people in such a way that that oh, well, that's just what happens in this particular marketplace. And of course, when you do that, then you're going to attract that as well. So it became a multi-layered thing of cleaning my own mind up, my own consciousness up, so that I'm not attracting that kind of energy. And what ended up happening is after I did that, I literally had another contractor come in, look at a different job, and then say, "This is too big for me. I can't do it."
Wow.
So there was, because of the inner work I did, it reflected in terms of having people who go, be tremendously honest and basically walk away from the job. So
You know what, thank you for this. And I just want everybody to notice, like when Mark said, gee, in this business, it can happen a lot. I went right to like, yeah, isn't that interesting? Like that our agreement, our expectation, and this is just a place for all of us to take a look at. If I'm expecting to have somebody be out of integrity, or that I'll always be at risk, or if I'm expecting that, then that is what end up getting reflected back.
so and I jumped right into it, but we have to start with the first premise that thoughts create. Thoughts are things, and thoughts actually create. And when that becomes a foundational piece, then life becomes about monitoring and cleaning up my thoughts more so than it becomes trying to figure out what is happening to me and like that. Okay, so I always start there. And if I always challenge people just to look around in the room, and everything that you can see was first invisible before it became visible. It was first a thought before it became a thing. So if we can clean up our thoughts, then we're able to manipulate, we're able to have more control in our life before it manifests into a thing. You see what I mean? It's like
Oh,
dealing
yeah.
with the invisible is easier than dealing with the visible, because once it's visible, it's manifested. It's solid, and then it becomes, it's harder to deal with.
I also appreciate that when you decided to look at yourself and you looked at the subtle ways, where, if anywhere, am I out of integrity? Where, if anywhere, am I holding back or not being completely honest? Whereas someone externally might have done something that seemed like a bigger stealing, took money, didn't do the job. Even if you had a small, subtle place, you cleaned it up, and then you had someone respond to you by being in a much higher place of integrity.
Right, right. And then, of course, what also happens is when you do that, then you also attract people who will say, okay, well, these are the kinds of techniques I do so it doesn't happen to me. And I don't even recall who it was. But someone says, well, whenever I hire a contractor, I take a picture of their license. So I literally, like in the last few days, agreed for a guy to come do some work for me. He gave me a quote and all that. And before I gave him the deposit, I said, well, I need to take a picture of your license. And that was unacceptable for him, and he disappeared. Now I had another guy who was fine with that. so,
Yeah.
so, you know, um, I guess the whole thing is that, again, if we are focused more internally than externally, and clean ourselves up internally and purify ourselves internally, then what we attract and our experiences will reflect that purity.
Yes. Well, Mark, this has been great because you've right away made us start to think about how much as you said, our thought creates experience, thought creates things, our thought is creative, and our thought about ourselves and what our businesses is like is creating, and we would rather be doing it purposefully and in a sense of integrity. So any
Absolutely.
final thoughts for our business owners who want to have more freedom, less of a sense of victimhood, and who want to be more masterful about navigating the things of their business life?
I would just say, love everything that comes in your, you know, comes in your space, because at the end of the day, that if you're putting that out, then that's what's going to come back to you. You want to be happy when you're paying your bills, because you want people to be happy when they're paying you.
Yes.
So it's like, let's be intelligent about what we're putting out so that we can actually reap what we really want to, sow. So, okay,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Okay, so I am so appreciative of what I see in the chat there. Michael says, I love the conscious approach. When we expand ourselves, and that subtle thing that Mark says at the end, love everything that comes, because it's all for our lessons and for our good. And believe me, I know that when you're in the middle of feeling like, these merchant service providers, they're grinding me. When you're in the middle of a thing, it's hard to love everything and see the lesson. But I just appreciate you all being open to this idea that as a leader, that really makes a difference. Well, my final thought before we take some questions from the group and comments is this idea that the most important thing in coming back from a financial loss is to set yourself free. So the things that are most troubling to us are the burdens we hold about ourselves. And I will tell you, even when someone else or, an institution, whether it's, the government, a vendor, a bank, an employee, we feel someone else has done something terrible to us, still the most painful part about it is what we think about ourselves. If we're still holding on to it, it's often because we think, I should have known better. I should have seen it coming. If I hadn't been this way or done this thing, it would have been different. And we beat ourselves up. And what I absolutely want to encourage you all is that the things you're dealing with require you to be at your best. So let yourself free of the judgments and the burdens and take what's happened to you as a lesson, as making you a stronger, more confident, more creative leader. You deserve it. Oh, good. And we've gotten a link in the chat for servant leadership. There's so many things about being a leader that are about setting yourself free. So I want to just say thank you so much for everybody listening and tuning into the message. We have time for your comments or your questions. And I just really appreciate everybody tuning in with this leadership message today.
Excellent. Thank you, Karen. So folks, please post your questions in the Q&A. We got some time to ask Karen some questions. You know, I look back at my career and I made lots of mistakes. And if I pondered on them too much, it could weigh me down. You know, you look at some of the best athletes in the world, especially in team sports, you know, the ones in leadership roles, football, quarterbacks, if they throw an interception, they don't think about it after it happens. It's done and gone, and they move on to the next piece. And those that struggle with that take it too personal after they make that mistake, they don't do well. They don't do well in the position. So and we can apply a lot of that, like you said, to free ourselves a bit. So
Yes. Yes.
we have a few chats coming in.
Yeah. You know, isn't this interesting? It's like, I'm still beating myself up. Just exactly what you said, Robert. It's like, if I'm still beating myself up, that's creative energy. You know, I'm missing the next play. I'm missing what's being called for right here.
You know, it's interesting because I look at my career and choices I've made within my career. And sometimes you can go back and say, well, if I would have done this, I would have been, but that's not a guarantee. That would have been.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've made choices and I can look at the results from the choices, and, you know, some weren't the best for the biggest paycheck, but some of the experiences I got out of them are invaluable. And so definitely, yeah, don't beat yourself up over those things that happened a while ago. They're done and gone. And so.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a thing about, you know, fail fast and you think about just about the businesses that have been most resilient in many ways through this very difficult time of the last 14 months. Some of the businesses that have been most creative have figured out, tried something, it didn't work, quickly got the lessons, and then went to new strategies.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We don't have any questions in the Q&A. Oh, we got a great big long comment here from Michelle in the chat.
Oh, that's the Michael Jordan quote. Missed the shots, missed the games. Yeah. Yeah. Well, for any of us who are, this will kind of date the recording, but for any of us who are Phoenix Suns fans, we know that challenges may come up, but, you know, our team can still do well. You miss a shot, you have a challenge, you have an injury, but you can still move forward.
Absolutely. Well, we got one question in the Q&A. Says, I don't have a question. I did have a significant financial loss in a business I had invested in 5 years ago. It was not the person who sold it to me. I realized from the session that I have not dealt with it, and it was my greed that took the better of me.
So thank you so much for putting that in there. And I would just encourage to be really kind to yourself, but real, because that energy, that greedy energy, it's a tough word to look at, but sometimes we want something and we don't, but we're not willing to do the research or the work or assess the risk, or like that energy, to just acknowledge I had that, and then to be really kind, and then kind of like Mark guided us to, what is it I want to create today? I want to clean up. There's nowhere in my life I'm going to be greedy. I'm going to be generous. I'm going to be fair. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to do my due diligence. Things may come and go, but I'm going to be in a good space. So you can work through that. And you've got 50 friends with you here today that are saying, we set you free.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that in the question. We do have a question here from Hilda. It says, what is the best way to deal with a client that couldn't afford your services and then tells everyone you are not reliable?
Ooh. So first of all, we've all been somewhere like that, where the client had a challenge and then they go out in the marketplace and say something about you. So I think that the place to go is, to the extent you can, is address it directly with the client. So if you see they've put a Facebook post out, or you find out somewhere that they've been talking, is it, if you can, just as a human being, to go back and say, hey, I saw this, let's talk about it. So that would be a step one, because when you at least do that, then when you message into the marketplace of, like if they've put a review out about you, there's places now where the owner can put a review back, and you do want to be able to say, I reached out to complaining client and here's what we're doing now. So that is a step one. Step two is do your inner work. So just, is there any place in you that you want to see, like, did I oversell? Did I try to put them in a program they couldn't really afford? Did I not set a boundary early enough? Like, just be honest, what in you? And then, feel like you clean that up. You're not going to do it again. You got the lesson. And then you just let it be okay that sometimes we have a client complaint, a down thumb on our YouTube video, somebody who wasn't satisfied. And just be positive going forward. And the other thing I always remember in times like that is, whoever they're complaining to probably at some level gets it, that the complainer, who says, I wanted a $50,000 outcome and I could only afford 15, but they couldn't get it to me. The person they're complaining to probably gets it.
Excellent. Great way to kind of wrap up this session. Be positive. Look at that. There's so many things out in the world right now that can bring you down. Don't add more to your load.
Yeah.
So great presentation, Karen. Excellent content, excellent message. Thank you very much. We appreciate everybody for being on with us today. We hope you can join us next week for our sessions and the future sessions. We wish everyone to have a great weekend. Be safe. Enjoy the time. Be careful with the weather outside. It is hot. Take lots of water with you. And we'll see you on Tuesday. So everybody have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.